Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to the audience in Australia and good morning to audience in Indonesia. First of all, I would like to welcome you to all to this prestigious mini conference by Indonesian students in Queensland, ISEC. And the second is I'm Wawan Sugiarto, the session moderator, and this is the session 5. In this occasion, we shall have a standing presentation from our prominent presenters, whom believe that shall enrich our insights and knowledge. Before I start the presentation, allow me to introduce the presenters. We have two presenters in this section. The first presenter is Mr. Lutfi Hamidi, and the second presenter is Mr. Rizan Mahfur. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our first presenter, Mr. Lutfi. Before it, I want to introduce the Mr. Lutfi Hamidi background. He's a PhD candidate in Griffith University, Australia, and then in 1996, he attained a Bachelor in Religion from Faculty of Law Sharia in IAIN Wali Songo. And in 1998, he attained his Bachelor in Economic Development from Diponegoro University. And in 2005, he attained his Master of Art in Islamic Banking from Loughborough University, UK. And he has a lot of publication in international reputable journal and also author several books, which the recent book is Islamic Banking in Indonesia, Emergence, Growth, and Prospects. And now, time is yours, Pak Lutfi. Success with your presentation. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to give my thanks to ISEC and all of the supporters of this prestigious event for conducting this virtual presentation. My name is Muhammad Lutfi Hamidi. I'm a PhD student at Griffith University. My research focus is in propose a framework for Islamic social banking. This is our outline today. This presentation is about the Friedman versus Elkington in and their impact to the Islamic banking. First, we will take a look what is the Friedman opinion as well as Elkington in doing social responsibility from the perspective of a business. Then it will be followed by a social objective in Islamic banking. We will then also present the methodology that we use to assess this study. And finally, we will present the finding. And in the end, we will provide conclusion and recommendation, hopefully. We are moving to the introduction first. When it comes to the social responsibility, experts are grouped into two opposite opinions. First, for example, in the one hand, they strongly oppose to the idea of social responsibility. On the other hand, experts strongly suggest business entities to conduct social responsibility. Let us check the first one. which is representative of the opposite one, which is Friedman. Friedman, or Milton Friedman, you might aware that he was a recipient of a Nobel laureate in economics in 1976. He first defined what is the social responsibilities all about, and he assumed that social responsibility, like a responsibility to someone family, to his conscience, to his feeling of charity, to his worship place, or even to his city or his country. And if this definition can be accepted, and then he suggests that actually they are the social responsibilities of individual, not business. Then he suggested that the one and only responsibility of business is to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profit, so long as it stays within the rule of the game. However, Friedman seemed to ignore one thing, that business not only produce profit or losses, but also produce externalities. A factory, for example, they provide, they can also produce like noises or pollution or even environmental degradation. And all this will be borne by the community surrounding it. That is why it is not wise to just take that responsibility of a business is only to increase profit. That is why later on, Elkington and Burke in 1987, they wrote The Green Capitalist. In this book, they quoted like this: what we are seeing is the emergence of a new age capitalism appropriate for a new millennium, in which the boundary between corporate and human value is beginning to dissolve. In this paragraph, it sent a message, a strong message to Friedman, that the separation between individual and a business social responsibility is not that correct. Even then, Elkington, in his phenomenal book, he suggests that in the future, the most sustainable firm, companies, is those who take care not only their profitability, but also pay attention to the environmental quality as well as a social justice. We are moving now to the a short literature review. In the Islamic concept, what is aimed with the social outcome? We are here defined that the social outcome are the observable results of the implementation of Islamic Bank social objective. Mostly, it can be derived from the theological support from the Quran and Hadith, and both of these original support suggest social objective should be a promotion for a just, fair, and balanced society. And it can appear in the following form. For example, alleviating poverty. One of the indicator in Islamic Bank, for example, disbursing zakat, for example, addressing social welfare, promoting social value, such as when Islamic Bank provide Qardul Hasan or free interest loan. The social outcome in Islamic banking also has been supported in regulation. I mean, so for example, in Indonesia, according to Undang-Undang Republik Indonesia Nomor 21 Tahun 2008, it strongly encourage to perform social function. So encourage Islamic bank to perform social function. The similar thing also can be found, for example, in Jordan, law number 28, year 2008 on banking law, that Islamic bank should revive social solidarity. So in fact, if we observe in the literature, we will find also two different groups. Those who contra, they think that Islamic bank should be allowed as a normal business entity. Inversely, those who pro, they suggest that Islamic bank should encourage social dimension, because the primary goal of Islamic bank is not only profit making, but also endorsement of social goal. Furthermore, Islamic bank is expected to be socially responsible than conventional bank. So the majority of Islamic scholars are in favor of Elkington rather than Friedman. But in reality, we might find the different thing, such as what I can quote from these following authors. Despite its strong growth and several attractive features in product and service delivery, some argue that Islamic bank have failed in delivering tangible social outcome. When observing social dimension of Islamic bank, experts tend to investigate through three different ways. The first one, they take a look to the from assessing corporate social responsibility. Secondly, they use a social and ethical reporting. And lastly, they use they inserted a social aspect in the whole Islamic bank performance. But all in all, experts find the Islamic bank social outcome are considered little or lesser than conventional bank. This presentation will address this following question. What are social outcomes of Islamic bank? How to measure social responsiveness of Islamic bank? How to determine a rating for each Islamic bank? And lastly, is Elkington triple bottom line, which are economic, and then social, and lastly environmental, are adequate to be applied in Islamic bank. This study fulfilled the gap in the previous study. First, in its tools, common study in this area use only pure content analysis. But here we use a content analysis with a quantitative valuation. Secondly, we also include the religiosity dimension. As previous study, such as Ibrahim et al. And Ramasamy et al., they suggest that religiosity is the source, the original source, to ignite the motivation of doing social outcome. Lastly, this presentation will also observe the current sustainability concept based on Elkington view will be extended to meet the Islamic bank objective. Now we are moving to the methodology. We will use secondary data as well as primary data. The secondary data will be obtained from the annual report of Islamic bank, while the primary data, we conducted a survey of more than 500 Islamic bank stakeholders in 6 provinces in Indonesia. The survey is designed using a Likert scale with 7 responses. Then the tool we will use a content analysis with a quantitative valuation, and we also use a multiple regression. First, we introduce the 4 resources for social performance indicator. We first gaining it from Islamic perspective, and then we also use KLD index, as well as the 17 sustainable development goal. And lastly, we also use 5 environment, social, and governance scorecard, which is primarily used in assessment of social banking. From these 4 sources, then we extracted into 6 dimensions. They are religiosity, environmental, social, governance, employees, and lastly, customer. For example, when we suggest the dimension of customer, the construct that we have is whether Islamic bank serving unserved area. Secondly, whether Islamic bank diversified financial product for women or disadvantaged group. And lastly, whether Islamic bank provide discount for their customer. This is the formula to calculate the social objective. We will not go into detail on this formula. Then, as we suggest before, that we use content analysis with quantitative valuation. For example, when I use a construct zakat, we can find the using keywords such as zakat, infak, and sedekah or yes in each annual report of the bank. And if we find the this in the annual report, but only as a conceptual matter, and then we will give it a 0. If the bank has a plan to execute it, then we give it a 1. But if the bank has already paid corporate zakat and distributed to the amount of this both directly and indirectly, and then we will give it 2. So this is what we call as content analysis with quantitative valuation. Another important thing that how to assess social responsiveness. Here we use RDAP scale. It is a scale with 4 different levels. The lowest one is reactive. The strategy is that deny responsibility. Their performance is between 0 until 40%, meaning doing less than required. Second is defensive. Third, accommodative. And lastly, proactive. For proactive, for example, they not only accept responsibility, but they also anticipate responsibility. So they're doing more than is required. We are moving now to the result. Well, we use 2 years observation in 2015 and 2016. 12 Islamic bank as our sample. In 2015, we found that for bank in reactive mode, while another 3 banks in defensive level, meaning that 7 banks of Islamic bank, their performance, their social performance is under expectation. But in 2016, we found that the reactive is reduced, only 3 banks reactive, while another 2 banks are in defensive level, meaning that in this year, more Islamic bank, which is 7 banks, are getting to the higher level, which are accommodative or proactive. So we can take a little bit closer to the 3 highest Islamic commercial banks to see their social outcome. For example, here BNI Syariah, in 2016, it recorded 77.5, meaning proactive. This then followed by Bank Syariah Mandiri with 72.5, and lastly PTPN Syariah with 72.5. If we look to the general result, we have 6 dimensions. We can see here that there are 2 dimensions underperform, which is environment and customer benefit. So in the environment, although the result getting better from 2015-2016, but we still can find that, for example, environment in 2016, they, in general, all of the Islamic bank could not exceed the 50% of the achievement, meaning that it's still under expectation. The worst is in customer benefit. We find here that the customer benefit is less than 10%. This is perhaps the source why, in general, Islamic bank in Indonesia, their market share not dynamically move to the bigger one, perhaps because Islamic bank still could not attract many customers. That is why we recommend that the Islamic bank need to address their social outcome and to improve the social the benefit for their customer. So, do Islamic bank follow Friedman or Elkington? Well, as we suggest before, that in 2015, 7 out of 12 Islamic banks' social outcome were under expectation. In other words, in 2015, Islamic banks were following Friedman rather than Elkington. But in 2016, it's getting better, and then it shifts to Elkington. Lastly, well, this is I think it's the most important thing is that we agree, most of the experts agree that the sustainability of business should be maintained carefully. And in this case, Elkington has provided a concept for sustainability. This concept, which is famously known as a triple bottom line, it contains of people, profit, and planet. The next question here is whether this framework can be applied in Islamic bank totally. Well, we might see here that actually the Quranic concept on sustainability, we found a concept of sustainability in a Quranic concept. It is quite surprising because 14 years ago, Quran, one of the surah of the Quran, Surah Al-Qasas, number 28, verse 77, it tells story about the Korun or Korah in the Old Testament. Korah is a huge and conglomerate. He got many abundant wealth, and his followers are massive. But he was only focused on profit and ignoring the society. That is why in the Quran, the story ends when Korah and his followers and his wealth swallowed by the earth. This is a tragic story about the sustainability. And in what is then Quran suggests that the best one to do a sustainable business to take care for these three bottom line. I will mention the first, wabtaghi fima atakallah darul akhirah wala tansa nasibaka minad dunya. And do not forget your portion in this world, meaning that a business should be prosperous, a business should be profitable. Wala tansa nasibaka minad dunya, and do not and do good as Allah has been good to you, meaning that business also should embrace the people. They should empower their society. And lastly, wala tabghil fasada fil ard, meaning that do not seek mischief or corruption in the land, for Allah love not those who do mischief. But this triple bottom line actually perfectly, as Elkington said in his theory, but in fact, Quran also insert one good thing in the beginning of the ayah, which is wabtaghi fima atakallah darul akhirah, that we are reminded to prioritize the happiness of the hereafter. And the happiness of the hereafter in the Islamic perspective could not be attained unless we follow the guidance of the Prophet. That is why, in this case, I propose a new additional dimension for sustainability using a quadruple bottom line with additional dimension of Prophet. I also provide the mathematical formula to measure this area, and we also provide how to assess this quadruple bottom line. As we suggest that we we use the triple bottom line proposed by Elkington, and then we add another additional dimension, which is profit. All these quadruple bottom line later on will be explained using Maqasid Sharia. What is Maqasid Sharia? Maqasid Sharia is the basic objective of Islamic law. According to Imam Ghazali, it is grouped into 5 elements. First, protecting self, then protecting will, then intellect, fourthly, protecting posterity, and lastly, preserving the faith or deen. And in this case, I use another additional planet will be explained from the contemporary expert Al-Najjar, that also provide a planet in a Maqasid Sharia. So this is the result of the multiple regression, that financial performance of Islamic bank according the stakeholder perception are significantly influenced by the prosperity in the first one. In the first one is very high significant, followed by the profit. The next question is, do the profit dimension really impact to the financial performance of Islamic bank? Here we will investigate a little bit about the application of profit dimension in Bank Muamalat Indonesia. I'm not sure whether we still have many time, but I will discuss this later on if there are any questions regarding this. But the most important thing is to see the impact of the implementation of profit dimension. In 1998, Bank Muamalat Indonesia is badly affected by the monetary crisis. In this case, Bank Muamalat suffer operating profit nearly 105 billion rupiah. And in the same time, they also suffer from non-performing loans, not performing financing, until 65%. While we can compare the threshold is no more than 5% from Bank Indonesia. So this is very critical condition, but only within a short time, less than 2 years, they start to profit and reduce the NPL within the acceptable level. The similar thing also happened in Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad. In 2004, they lost until nearly 27 million ringgit, which was the deepest losses during its establishment. But after these losses, and they changed the board of director, and they selected a new president director, which is Dr. Datuk Manap bin Abdul Wahab. After observing the condition of Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad, and then the new elected president director went to Indonesia, to Bank Muamalat Indonesia, to learn how they transform the financial performance from the highest losses, from the losses to the flourish. And they request all of their staff in Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad to be trained as they seen in the Bank Muamalat. The result, unfortunately, should be here because I transfer into PDF and it could not work well. So in 2005, they start to record a profit around 40 million ringgit. The next year, in 2006, they recorded the profit nearly 100 million ringgit. So this is a quite big
Pak Lutfi, I think it's a better we continue to in the question and answer sessions. Your time maybe 2 minutes more. It's okay?
Yes, but sorry, Mr. Moderator, I'm sorry, I could not move the slide. It should it seem have a little problem. Can I switch it first?
Oh yeah.
Yes, this is the comment of Dato' Abdul Manap bin Wahab that the bank significantly reduced the highest fraud within their history. So in conclusion, we suggest that Friedman and Elkington ideas has been followed by Islamic Bank. Theoretically, Muslim scholars have encouraged Islamic Bank to deliver their social outcome, but in reality, some of them found that Islamic Bank are social failure. We propose to extend Elkington triple bottom line, prosperity, people and planet, with another dimension, which is P for profit. The new additional dimension serve the ethical guidance for Islamic Bank. Then we found that regression results indicate all variables are highly significant, where prosperity in the first followed by the profit in the second place. Lastly, the application of the profit dimension in Bank Muamalat Indonesia and Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad improve both financial performance from distress to flourish. That is all of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I will be happy to answer if there are many questions for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Lutfi. Interesting presentation and also interesting study with the, I think, the good results. That's all the variable is significant. And we continue to the first question. I think from Pak Herdian Maulana. Wondering, what do you think about the government plan to merge all BUMN Islamic Bank under one Islamic Bank entity? So, what do you think about on this issue, and maybe it's correlated with Islamic social banking, Pak Lutfi?
Thank you, Pak Herdian, Pak Dr. Herdian Maulana. This is a quite challenging question. Actually, in my mind, the plan to merger between bank, Islamic Bank within the ownership of the government, it will create a strong Islamic Bank in Indonesia. Because currently what we find is many Islamic banks, but with very limited capital. In this case, they could not improve their contribution. They could not hire the best technology to create the best service for their customer. That is why this merger, I suppose it will increase their capability to deal firstly with the capital, and a big bank with big capital almost can do anything, so they can improve their service and product through the latest technology provided. I think this is my answer to Dr. Herdian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Lutfi. We continue to the second question from Brother Farel Prabowo. Pak Farel Prabowo. How would Islamic banking deal with the current pandemic situation where a lot of countries are in recession? So, what do you think about this issue, Pak Lutfi?
Thank you, Pak Farel Prabowo. This is another tough question. I think most of Islamic banks currently doing more cautious. I mean, they are in the level of steady to disburse loan or disburse financing, but with very take care. I mean, like this, because in this certain condition, it is very difficult to deal with a business. If we see the current impact of the business, we find that, for example, in Indonesia, 99% of the business are consisting for a small and medium enterprises. In this case, as suggested by the government, that about around 50% of the small and medium enterprise will be badly affected because of the, many activities that is controlled by the government. So the business might not expand their activities. That is why in this case, actually, we hope that the external power, which is from the government, will support the Islamic Bank to guarantee the loan. Why? Because, for example, if bank disperse many financing, but the condition is not really acceptable, and it will create further non-performing loan. In this case, bank is very selected to those will receive the loan. That is why if the government has allocated a budget to create like a guarantee system, I mean, they will guarantee the loan of the small medium enterprise so that the Islamic Bank not to worry if it is fail, and then government still provide the guarantee. And alternatively, I propose that Islamic Bank should work with external factor. I mean, like in Indonesia, we have such as Basnas and other last lembaga amil zakat. That probably they also can create to be an ethical partner. To support, to guarantee the loan. I have make like a model to make a new alternative guarantee system based on zakat, infak, sedekah, so that Islamic Bank will still can provide financing to small medium enterprise without afraid that the business will not smoothly operate. I think this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pak Lutfi. There is interesting explanation. I think it's one more question related with your recommendation is to give incentive to the Islamic Bank. I mean that the regulator should provide incentive to apply Islamic social banking. Can you explain what kind of incentive should to provide by the regulator or the authority, Pak Lutfi?
A good thing if, for example, if Islamic Bank seriously take care the social outcome, then the central bank or OJK, for example, they could put it as another instrument for their assessment. Oh, that this bank already do good. Otherwise, if it is only like only such appreciation, it's not make them too eager to have eagerness to do the social outcome more better. Yeah, that is.
Okay, thank you, Pak Lutfi. I think it's interesting topic, but the time is limited, so I think it's better we continue to the next presenter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pak Lutfi.
Yeah.
And we have one of the presenter, Pak Rishan Mafroor. I would like to introduce this. He is a PhD candidate in data science at the University of Queensland, Australia. Expected graduation September 2021. And
hopefully.
He done his Master of Engineering Art from Konam National University, South Korea in 2015. And also he has several publications and the author the book 24 Purnama di Korea kalau nggak salah ya, if I'm not a mistake. Now is time yours, Pak Rishan. Success with your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Mas Wawan. So my voice is clear, right? And also I have screen sharing. Okay, yeah, everything is work fine. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the time. I'm Lisan Mafroor, and I'm from the University of Queensland, Australia. And today I'm going to talk about my research. The title is From Data to Insight, Automating Data Visualization, Drug Recommendation. And actually this research is the collaboration between University of Queensland, Australia and United Arab Emirates University. Okay, so you think finding your car keys when you forget is hard. You can try to finding insight in big data. So finding insight in big data, it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. So it is really, really hard. The reason why finding insight in big data is hard because of the several challenges, and these are the challenges of big data. Generally, people understand and know about 4 V's of big data: volume, and then variety, velocity, and veracity. Maybe we can start with the volume. Maybe we can try to remember when I was in my high school, maybe I played with the floppy disk. Maybe Mas Wawan remember that. And also when I start my bachelor degree in 2009, maybe I had little flash disk. The capacity is 250 megabyte. And then if we compare to current situation, now I have hard drive external, and the capacity is like 5 terabytes. So yeah, we not talking about gigabyte, about terabyte, and never talking about even megabyte or maybe kilobyte. So this is a volume. Why we call it big data? Because it has a huge volume. And then the second one is variety. Variety, it's mean big data has different form of data. So for example, now we have social media, the era of social media. We have data from Facebook, from Twitter, and then even we have a lot of huge amount of video data, for example, from YouTube, and then maybe voice data, Spotify. So this kind of data is unstructured data. So data which is not structured. And then on the other side, we also have structured data, which means if we go to the university and then university has a database, staff database or student database, or maybe if we go to the company and each company, they have like database for their company, and mostly those kind of database are stored in relational database management system, or we call it RDBMS, which is this database is structured data. And then the other thing is velocity, which is streaming. Now it's the era of IoT, and then we have so much of data stream. Even for example, like Gojek server always ping the driver maybe less than 1 second, once per second, because they just want to know the precision of the driver location. So maybe we can try to imagine that. So this is our era, which is the era of streaming. And then the other challenge of big data is veracity, which is uncertainty of data. So because of we have a lot of sensor, for example, from IoT data, they came from a lot of sensors. So that's why when we got data from a lot of sensor, mostly we have like missing data, and then bias, invalid, or maybe outlier. So we have to deal with this kind of situation. So these are 4 V's of big data, which is very challenging. So this is why finding insight in big data is hard. So I just want to talk about the existing tool, and there are so many tools actually that we can use for gaining insight from the even from the start from the small to the big data. For example, maybe everyone knows about Excel, right? So usually we use Microsoft Excel to gain an insight from our data, but Microsoft Excel is limited yeah, this software can be used for just a small up to medium data set, but not for the big data. But still, we can still use this kind of tool. And then, for example, like Google Sheet, it's very similar with Excel, Microsoft Excel. And then from Microsoft product, we know Power BI. So Power BI is a common tool that usually used by business analysts. BI tool, we call it BI tool, and this tool can be used for analyzing, start from the small data set, medium, up to a big data set. And then also Tableau is very popular. Even when you go to data.go.id, the portal data of Indonesian government, they use Tableau. So for plotting visualization, they use Tableau. And then other tools like Spotfire, Qlik, and many more. So there are some existing tools that can be used for gaining insight from big data, but the problem is this kind of tool, they didn't provide like recommendation. So I can say that this kind of tool don't have insight recommendation. And then the problem is not everyone can understand how to write a query, how to plot, or how to generate visualization, how to gain an insight from the data. So this is the problem. So as a researcher, how can we help the data analysts to get to their insight? And the answer is visualization recommendation system. I will give you an example how visualization recommendation system works. For example, we have a data set, or we have a database, we call it a DB. And then if we use visualization recommendation system, the system will automatically generate all possible visualization from DB. So yeah, this is different thing if we compare between computer and human, right? So computer can do same task, multiple tasks in the same time. So that's why if we use this system, this visualization recommendation system, this system will automatically generate all possible visualization from our data set. And then the system will compute the importance score of each visualization, or in another word, we call it a utility score of each visualization. And then after that, all those kind of visualization will be ranked based on the importance score. And then finally, the top K recommended visualization are generated. So in this one, K is equal to 2. So we have 2 visualization are recommended by the system. So this is how visualization recommendation system works. So this is very useful, especially for general user, because they don't know how to write a query, they don't know how to plot or how to gain insight from the data, from their data. So if they use this kind of tool, it will help them much, because they just upload the data set and then directly get the recommendation. Okay, one of the example of visualization recommendation system is CDB. I will give you a more detailed example here to understand the context. So this CDB, the author of this CDB is from MIT and Google. And how CDBs work? So for example, this is the real case. I have heart disease data set. So this heart disease data set is public data set I got from UCI Machine Learning. So for example, if I have heart disease data set, so because I'm a human and then I don't want to get heart disease, of course, I want to stay healthy. And then what I'm going to do when I have this heart disease data set is I want to know the difference between people with heart disease versus people without heart disease. So this is my first hypothesis to gain the insight, right? So okay, let's say we want to see the 2 subset, which is the target subset, people with heart disease, and then people without heart disease, right? And then we use CDB to generate a recommendation, and this is the top 1 recommended visualization based on CDB. So we have on the x-axis we have chest pain types, on y-axis is we have average of all peak. So yeah, maybe people from medical college, they can understand this kind of thing. Okay, but that's fine. So the reason why CDB recommend this visualization, or this visualization become the top 1, is because this visualization has high deviation, which is deviation between the target subset, between the people with heart disease versus people without heart disease, the black one. So the deviation score or the importance score is 0.648. So this approach, the CDB approach, called their approach as deviation-based approach. And then I will give you more example to make it clear. This is the example of not interesting visualization. This is visualization number 500. So if we see this visualization, we want to compare, from this data set, we want to compare between female and male in terms of the average of age, right? So we can see here. And then from this visualization, we couldn't see anything, right? There is no insight from this thing. But if we see this visualization, we will get insight. We will gain insight from this one. So that's why the importance score, the deviation score for this visualization is 0.00 something. So that's why CDB will recommend this kind of visualization and will not recommend this kind of visualization. Okay, it has been proven, CDB approach has been shown to be effective in recommending insight. Because they already published their paper, and then before that they just like hired so many data scientists to check this hypothesis, and it has been proven that this method it's effective for recommending insight. So this method has been used in CDB. The author is MIT and Google. And also, another work is from Microsoft Power BI, and the title of the paper is Quick Insight. If you're interested, you might check this title. And actually, this paper already implemented by Microsoft Power BI on the cloud service, but it's still beta. The concept is similar. If there are high deviation between two subsets, this visualization is interesting. So this is the main idea. So CDB approach has been shown to be effective in recommending insight. But however, as a researcher, my job is to find the gap before I start my PhD, right? When I looking for the visualization recommendation system, I found a CDB. CDB has very good method and very easy to understand method. Visualization that has high deviation between two subsets will be recommended, right? But when I try CDB, when I generate recommendation from CDB, I saw flaws. One of the issue from CDB is redundancy and recommendation. Okay, I will give you an example here. So this is the top 3 recommended visualization using heart disease dataset based on CDB. So I use CDB to generate this kind of recommendation. So we have a top 1, top 2, and top 3. If we see these 3 visualizations, we will see that most of them, they have same attribute, which is chest pain types, also same aggregate function, which is average. Even for the measure attribute, all peak, numerical attribute, it also same, right? So very redundant. So we can imagine, just imagine if I am the user and then I just upload or I just send my data set, and then hopefully I can get a good recommendation, recommended visualization. But in reality, what I got from the recommendation is almost similar or redundant. So this is the problem. So we conduct experiment with different data sets and always find this redundancy in top recommendation. So that's why this is serious issue. So because of this, previously I proposed, we call it DIVE, diversifying view recommendation for visual data exploration. So this work actually has been published in CIKM, the Conference of Information and Knowledge Management 2018. So if you're interested, you can just go drop this title, Diversifying View Recommendation for Visual Data Exploration. So what we did in this approach in DIVE. So first we proposed DIVE schemes to recommend top K visualization without redundancy. First is we trying to diversifying visualization recommendation. So of course, and then we we call it hybrid objective function, which integrates between the important or utility score and diversity score. So if CDB only depend on the important score or utility score, I put another variable here, which is diversity. So if a user asks top 5 recommendation, so I will see these 5 visualization must different, not exactly same or similar or redundant. So I just want to make sure that recommended set, the recommended visualization are not redundant. And then this is our proposed idea in terms of effectiveness, and we also propose another idea in terms of efficiency. So we applied a pruning technique to a dive scheme to prune a large number of low utility visualization. So yeah, it's the pruning technique. It's common in computer science. So some of people, they understand very well about the pruning. So, but in this case, we have a different way. But I will not go to the detail in this presentation. So we propose a pruning technique for dive scheme without reducing or without compromising the effectiveness. So this is what I did. So if you're interested, you can go drop to my paper. And then another problem. Okay, we understand that CDB or visualization recommendation system like CDB, they can provide recommended visualization to the user, right? But the problem is most of visualization recommendation system, they operate under the assumption that the analyzed data is clean, which is this assumption is a little bit tricky and contradict to the challenge of the big data, right? One of the challenges of big data is uncertainty. And in the real world setting, we can understand that most of the data are dirty. And then we have to understand about the concept of GIGO, which is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So if the dirty data, if we analyze not clean or dirty data, and then the result will be a crap. So this is the problem. Because most of visualization recommendation, they use assumption. The assumption is they run under the clean data set. I will give you more example here. So for example, still we have hard disease data set with a 0 missing values. We call it complete data. And then we use CDB to generate recommendation. And then we have this top 3 recommended visualization, top 1, top 2, and top 3, right? And then from this clean data set, I just copy this clean data set to another data set, and then I put 20% missing values to the data set randomly. The missing values, we just put a missing values randomly, and then we call it this data set incomplete data. And then still, we use same method, CDB, to generate recommendation, and this is the result. And if we compare the recommended visualization between complete data and incomplete data, we can see that only one visualization in common. So this visualization exactly same, right? But the problem is based on the complete data, the position is number 3, but for the incomplete data, the position is number 1. And how about the other visualization? The other visualization are exactly different. So this is the problem. So just imagine if we have data set with 20% missing values, and then we run CDB, we run visualization recommendation system, the result, the recommended visualization that we got are exactly different compared to if we have a clean data set. So this is the problem. So because of this situation, in my second work, we studied the interplay between the incomplete data and recommended visual analytic under a combination of different conditions. For example, we use different distribution of incomplete data. For example, we use 0% of missing data, 10%, 20%, up to 90% of missing data. And then also we have a different setting. For example, what if the missing data only on the categorical data? What if the missing data only on numerical data? Something like that. And then we also use several data imputation methods, well-known data imputation methods. So commonly, when we have a data set and then our data set has a missing value, we will use imputation algorithm to fix the missing values. One of the simple imputation algorithm is like using mean, or maybe using median, or maybe using KNN algorithm, and many more. So we use and then compare the performance of several data imputation methods, but in the context of visualization recommendation. And then we also use different type of insight. If in Dive, in my previous work, I only focus on aggregate visualization, which is using bar chart. But for this research, I use different type of insight, not only the aggregate-based visualization. And then we also propose quality measurement for assessing or for comparing the goodness of recommendation between incomplete data set to the complete data set. So yeah, as I told you before in the previous slide, we utilize 3 types of insight. So this is aggregate-based insight, exactly same what the CDB did. And then in Dive, we also use this kind of type of visualization and insight. And then in my second work, I add more insight type, for example, correlation-based insight. So this is important because when we start to analyze data, usually we also looking for correlation. And then for the correlation, if for the aggregation, we have x-axis as the attribute, and then y-axis, the aggregate function of the measure attribute, or the aggregate function of the numerical data, and this is the categorical data for the y-axis, for the x-axis. But for the correlation-based insight, we have both attribute mass numerical, right? So we have to use numerical data for the x-axis or for the y-axis. And then one more insight type is this distribution-based insight. The example is like skewness or kurtosis. This is quite important because when we want to start to analyze data, usually we will check the skewness and also the kurtosis to see the outlier column or the outlier attribute. So this visualization type or the insight type is only based on the single dimension or single attribute as the x-axis, and then for the y-axis, we have a frequency or the counting of the data. So if you interested in my work, you can see, or you can just go through this title because this work already published in DEXA 2020. So quality matters, understanding the impact of incomplete data on visualization recommendation. So this is the summary of my second study, the incomplete data study. So in this incomplete data study, we investigate the interplay between incomplete data and recommended visual analytic under a combination of different conditions. So this study lies the foundation for further exploring appropriate ways to deal with incomplete data and minimize the impact of incomplete data on visualization recommendation. So this work can provide valuable insight for data analysts rather than blindly believing a recommendation result over low quality data. So we have to remember about GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If we have a data set that's crap, so of course the result will be crap as well. And this is my research summary. Yeah, hopefully next year. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, hopefully I can graduate next year. So this is my research summary. I just bring my previous slide, which is the 4 challenges of big data. And this is, the first challenge is volume. Big data means the data has very huge in terms of rows or very huge in terms of column. So if we have a data set that so many columns, so we call it multidimensional data. So yeah, the first challenge is volume multidimensional data, but in my research, I focus on structured data because of course research has limitation. So this is my limitation. And then in this case, because we already know that we have visualization recommendation system. The most popular example is CDB, but CDB has a problem, has the issue, because CDB recommend redundant visualization. So that's why we propose Dive to fill the gap. So if we use Dive, so we will not see redundancy in recommendation. And then the second challenge is veracity. Veracity, this one, which is uncertainty. So we only focus on incomplete data. If you know, uncertainty is so many, especially in the big data, right? So like outlier, invalid data, bias, and many more. But in this research, of course, we have limitation. We only focus on incomplete data. So these two have been done, and then 1 year remaining, and I still have Velocity. So currently I'm working on this part, how to recommend visualization, how to giving recommendation, over the data stream. So if we have data stream, and then how we can generate recommendation effectively and efficiently. And this work is really interesting and really challenging. Okay, and yeah, this is my last slide. The next challenge, the real product. Yeah, actually I just start. I'm I'm planning with my friends with some of my friends in Indonesia to start a startup, and yeah, hopefully next year, maybe in the middle of next year, we are planning to release our product. Yeah, hopefully. So it's still just only a landing page, visua.id. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much. If you have any question, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rishan, for your excellent presentation. I think it's almost done with your research. And then if you need the financial advisor with your startup business, maybe we can collaborate.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, Pak Rishan, there is a lot of question. Okay, the first question is from Bu Yanuar Primanda. He asked about the confidentiality of the big data. What do you think about this issue, Pak Rishan?
Okay, so confidentiality is mean like a privacy, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. So yeah, that is the problem. That is the different research fields actually. So in my case, I'm not focused on that area, but I can say maybe just a little bit about that. So privacy, especially in the era of data, is like a very urgent issue, because maybe start from, of course, developed country like UK and Australia, they already started about that. So for example, the last issue, maybe I think so many people, they heard about the Cambridge Analytica, right? In the previous campaign, Donald Trump versus Hillary, right? So that is the problem. So now we have like Facebook, and then Google, and then Amazon, and then they have a lot of data. Even for example, like our data, also they just store everything, right? Even Google, maybe they are smarter than me to understand about myself. So maybe you can, maybe you have experience when you try to search something on Google, and then directly when you open a Facebook, or when you open another media, and then you see advertisement about things that you're looking for on Google. So that is the problem. This is the privacy issue. In one side, it's helped us, right? It's helped us because they know what we want, but in another side, it's creepy, right? Because our privacy is just like they stole our privacy. So this is really huge issue, and so many people, they work on this area, but still we have to consider about this kind of thing as well, because now Indonesia, we start to have Bukalapak, Tokopedia, and then Gojek, and many more. So I think the regulation, especially the government, and I also speak to person that work in government, Mas Wawan. So just make sure that government is ready for this, especially for the regulation. Yeah.
Okay. We move to the next question, Pak Rishan. This from Pak Gunawan Tanuwijaya. He asking about what is your opinion on disparity of digital infrastructure among Indonesia regions? For example, the eastern part of Indonesia, which are not served with internet services.
Oh yeah, this is a really good question. So this is really good question. I have a friend who doing research about this kind of thing. So this is actually out of my part, right? But I can, I can give more insight about this question. So my friend, he doing research about the internet in the rural area. And the focus is on the healthcare because we can understand that using technology can help much for the people, right? So for example, in Indonesia, maybe I can mention we have application like Halodoc that help so many people. They can doing online consultation, especially for healthy case. But the problem is in the rural area. So my friends doing research about how to deliver like online service for the rural area, which is how to minimize the bandwidth, how to select the how to say because we have a different frequency, right? For example, if the internet, the number of frequency is something, and then for the radio is different. The other things are different, and then my friends try to find the optimist way to deliver online service for the rural area, and it might help much next for the Indonesia, hopefully. So yeah, this is the thing that I can say about
Yeah,
that.
this good idea, Pak Arishan. So we move to the next question. It's still from Pak Gunawan Tanuwijaya. So related with big data mining. Do you have any suggestion to increase the big data mining, Pak, in eastern part of Indonesia?
So this mean like a coal mining or it's
I think it's
what?
related with the. I mean, it's maybe using the big data for
Oh,
purposes or special purposes, something like that. I think is.
so yeah, eastern part of Indonesia, we have and if we see like President Joko Widodo, he also focused on the eastern part of Indonesia. Yeah, actually we can help much with the big data. So okay, for example is like this. I have experience work in company. We call it Kartoza. So this company is from Western Cape, South Africa. So I work in this company like almost 2 years, and we are working for geospatial analysis. So at the time, my position is as the back-end engineer. So this geospatial analysis, we use image from the satellite, and then try to analyze many things. So we got a lot of project. One of example project is from the space agency from South Africa, and then the other thing is from like the agriculture industry, which is how to plot the land using the satellite image to find the optimized way for the agriculture, something like that, right? And then we have a trouble for the eastern part of Indonesia, which is we have a lack of infrastructure there. And then, for example, when we want to deliver something, and then we have to find one of the optimized way, and then we still trying to find which the best way. Maybe using this kind of tool, this kind of technique, the big data geospatial analysis, it can help the government. So this is the one of the example, Mas Wawan.
Yes, exactly, Pak.
Yeah.
So we move to the next question from Pak Yosi Agustiawan. Then her assumption is that the recommendation can be wrong or fake.
Yeah.
So how to avoid the wrong recommendations?
Yeah, it's good, very, very good question, and it is related to my work actually.
Yeah.
So one of my college, so my supervisor has my second supervisor has 2 students, and one of them he working on this part, which is how to avoid bias on recommendation. It's really, really nice because you know, for example, it's the things that make sense. We can understand everything about this one. So correlation is not always so when we see, for example, okay, this thing is very correlated, but this is not causation. Not something that it's really happen because of that thing. So it's only correlated. But for example, like this one. So if we see, if we want to see the correlation between weather and then the productivity or something, and then we see the correlation. But is that because of that things? We're not sure, right? So this is the bias. And so many things are biased. Even for the fake recommendation, it's because of the bias. And the problem is we trying to do recommendation only based on the data driven, which is our algorithm is only working on the data driven. So only based on the data, and then we see if there is any high deviation between two subsets. This visualization might interesting, but some of them they might bias, and then we have to verify about that. So okay, let's I will give you more example for more detail, Mas Wawan. So for example like this, if we have a data set from BPS Indonesia, let's call it census data set, right? We have census data set, and then we try to analyze this census data set. Overall, on average, married people in Indonesia have a higher income compared to the jomblo one, compared to unmarried. This is obvious, right? This is obvious. This is obvious. This is obvious because, yeah, most of people like that. But suddenly, in certain of area of Indonesia, like in the certain of city, we see it different, which is exactly different, completely different. Jomblo has higher income compared to the married people. So this is very interesting. This is outstanding. But when we check, it might bias, right?
Yeah.
So we have to verify this kind. And this is the result from my friend, actually. Thank you for the question.
Okay, and I think this the last question. Maybe you can give a short answer. I think we have two questions. The first is from Pak Hakim Masyur. What kind of program of software do you use to analyze big data in your research bar? And the second question from Abu Yosefin Day. Does the recommendation can be understood for everyone who does not from data science background, or the recommendation must be read and understood by the data analysis? I think it's the last question, and can you give the short answer?
Yeah, sure. So for the tool that I use for analyzing my data, so of course it's like I use Python. And so a lot of library from the Python. Yeah. So if you try to looking like Python for data analysis, you will find so many things on there. But this Python is mostly used by a programmer. But if Pak Hakim Mansur want to use another tool that easy to use, you can see my previous slide. So I mentioned existing tool for business analytics. And then the last question about the recommendation. Yeah, we are trying to do that. So actually, I want that my recommendation can be easily understand by general people. So this is our purpose actually. So because the reason is not everyone can write a query, not everyone can generate insight from the data, not everyone can generate good, nice or visualization, right? So we are trying to giving recommendation that can easily understand for the general user. So that is my answer. Thank you so much, Kawan.
Thank you so much, Pak Rishan. I think it is the good topic and interesting research. Then I know that many audience want to more about your research, about your the application, but because the time is limited for this mini conference, so we are going to on the closing statement. So please, Pak Lutfi, to join with us. Pak Lutfi, are you there, Pak Lutfi?
Pak. Thank you, Mas Wawan, and good afternoon also to my friend, best friend, Mas Rishan Mafrur.
Good afternoon,
Well,
Pak
for
Lutfi.
my closing statement, I would like first that hopefully my research can be heard, can be listened by regulator, particularly from the OJK, when they assess the sustainability of Islamic banking. So they can use the framework that I developed. It will be a good idea because I think this kind of a new development will more precisely or more fit with the Islamic bank condition. Secondly, I think the industry, particularly the uh, practitioner of Islamic bank, they should aware that based on my research that they deliver really low benefit for their customer. So in this case, it is needed to seriously take care their business activity to provide sweetness so that the customer might aware that Islamic bank provide many benefit for them, so they will be a loyal customer for Islamic bank. I think that's all, Mas Wawan. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Pak Lutfi. And your turn, Pak Arisan.
Okay, yeah, my closing statement actually, yeah, hopefully in the end of next year, maybe when I got a question, for example, from Pak Hakim Mansur, what kind of program of software do you use to analyze big data? And then I can answer, just use my product Visua. That's thing. So hopefully, yeah, I can launch my product as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
I mean. Okay, finally, we come to the end of the presentation. And again, thank you so much to Pak Lutfi and Pak Risan for the informative and interesting presentation, and for the audience for your active participation. Hopefully, the presentation will be beneficial for audience. Thank you for your attention. I'm gonna to conclude this session. Good afternoon, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.